Welcome back to the Pitwall Pod, the podcast where we dive deep into the biggest moments, stories, battles of Formula One. Today we're heading to Spielberg for the Austrian Grand Prix, where speed, strategy, and pressure collide. With the Red Bull Ring's fast corners, fearless overtakes, and unpredictable drama, every lap has the potential to change the championship story. From the fight for victory to the rivalries shaping the grid, we'll break down the key moments, the surprises, and the performances that made this race unforgettable. So buckle up, the engines are fired up, the lights are ready, and the Austrian Thunder is about to begin. The Austrian Grand Prix weekend began with a statement from Mercedes' Kimi Antonelli, set the pace in practice 1, finishing ahead of his teammate George Russell in a dominant 1-2 for the team. The championship leader showed incredible confidence around the Red Bull Ring, posting a fastest lap of 1 minute 7.796 seconds, just 400 seconds ahead of Russell. McLaren's Oscar Piastri followed closely behind in third, proving that the battle at the front could be extremely tight throughout the weekend. The session also featured 6 rookies drivers getting their chance on track, adding another layer of excitement as teams collected valuable data in the hot Austrian conditions. However, not everyone had a smooth start. Max Verstappen faced earlier struggles on his Red Bull suffered anti-stall issues, forcing the car back into the garage before he could properly begin the session. The four-time reigning champion eventually returned to the track, but reported that the tires felt overheated and that he lacked feeling from the car. McLaren also faced problems with Lando Norris losing valuable track time due to a hydraulic issue, leaving him stuck in the garage until the final stages of the session. As the teams switched to softer tires, Mercedes continued their battle at the top, with Antonelli and Russell trading fastest laps. The Italian proved once again why he's leading the Drivers' Championship, handling the pressure perfectly and keeping his teammate behind. The session ended under a red flag after Sergio Perez's Cadillac stopped on track with a mechanical issue, bringing an earlier finish to free practice 1. With Mercedes looking strong, McLaren still in the fight, Red Bull searching for answers. The Austrian Grand Prix weekend has already started with plenty of drama. The second practice session at the Austrian Grand Prix confirmed that Mercedes has arrived at the Red Bull Ring with serious pace, as championship leader Kimi Antonelli once again finished on top of the timesheets. After leading FP1 earlier in the day, the young Italian continues his impressive form in FP2, setting the fastest lap of a 17.014 second and ending Friday as the driver to beat. McLaren showed strong improvement with Oscar Piastri finishing second and Lando Norris close behind in third, proving that the fight at the front could be much closer than expected. The session began with cooler conditions, giving teams a better opportunity to prepare their race setups. Norris immediately looked comfortable, setting the earlier benchmark and on medium tires, and briefly leading the session before Mercedes responded. However, drama returned quickly, as once again Sergio Perez's difficult weekend continued. After suffering problems in FP1, his Cadillac stopped again at turn 6, bringing out a virtual safety car and creating more frustration for the team. Mercedes soon regained control, with Antonelli becoming the first driver to break into the 1-7 range. The championship leader showed incredible confidence, adapting quickly and finding more performance on the track as the track improved. McLaren remained a major threat, with Piastri briefly taking the fastest time during the soft tire runs, before Antonelli delivered another strong lap to reclaim the top position. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen endured another challenging session. After struggling with the balance of his Red Bull earlier in the day, he finished fourth, ahead of Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, and Isaac Hadjar. Ferrari showed signs of progress as Charles Leclerc returned to the car after missing FP1 and finished inside the top 10, while Cadillac's problems continued to leave both Perez and Bottas unable to complete meaningful running. By the end of Friday, one message was clear. Mercedes has the pace, Antonelli is looking unstoppable, and McLaren is ready to challenge, but with Verstappen still within reach, the Austrian Grand Prix weekend is far from decided. The final practice session at the Austrian Grand Prix delivered another Mercedes battle at the top, but this time it was George Russell who claimed the spotlight. Russell produced a late flying lap to take P1 in FP3, narrowly beating his teammate Kimi Antonelli by just 0.03 of a second. The Mercedes duo once again showed incredible pace around the Red Bull ring, heading into qualifying with confidence. The session started quietly, with Sergio Perez taking to the track earlier, as Cadillac looked to recover from their difficult Friday. After reliability problems affected both Perez and Valtteri Bottas in FP2, every lap was valuable for the struggling team. As the session developed, McLaren showed strong speed, with Lando Norris setting the early benchmark on soft tires. Oscar Piastri also looked competitive before Antonelli responded and moved to the top of the standings. Max Verstappen had another complicated session. The Red Bull driver was one of the last to appear on track and reported unusual issues, including interference with his communication equipment. Despite the setbacks, he remains a threat and continued working on his setup ahead of qualifying. Mercedes continued their intense fight as Antonelli improved his lap time and looked set to finish the session fastest. However, in the final moments, Russell delivered when it mattered most, finding the extra pace needed to steal first place. Lewis Hamilton also showed strong form, ending FP3 in third place, just over a 10 behind Russell. McLaren followed closely with Piastri fourth and Norris fifth, keeping the top teams separate by small margins. Verstappen finished sixth, while Charles Leclerc, Isaac Hadjar, and Racing Bull Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad completed the top 10. With Mercedes dominating practice sessions and the gaps remaining incredibly close, qualifying at the Red Bull ring promised to be a battle of precision, pressure, and pure speed. Russell takes pole after Verstappen drama in Spielberg. Qualifying at the Austrian Grand Prix delivered one of the most dramatic endings of the season, with George Russell securing pole position after a chaotic final lap that saw Max Verstappen crash out of the fight for the top spot. Mercedes continued their incredible pace throughout the weekend, but the battle for pole was far from predictable. Kimi Antonelli looked like the favorite after topping Q1 and Q2, while Ferrari entered the final shootout with strong pace and hopes of challenging Mercedes. In Q3, Antonelli set the early benchmark with a lap of 1 minute 6.414 seconds, narrowly ahead of Russell and Verstappen, but the real drama came during the final attempts. As drivers pushed for the ultimate lap, Verstappen lost control of his Red Bull through turn 9, sliding into the barriers and bringing out yellow flags. The crash immediately changed the outcome of qualifying, putting pressure on every remaining driver still on track. While Antonelli backed out of his final attempt, Russell continued his lap and delivered when it mattered most. Despite lifting for the yellow flags, the Mercedes driver found enough time to take pole position with a 1 minute 6.113 seconds, beating Ferrari's Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. The final grid battle ended with Russell on pole, Leclerc second, Hamilton third, and Antonelli fourth. Verstappen, despite his crash, managed to keep fifth place ahead of the McLaren pair of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Earlier in qualifying, Verstappen nearly suffered another setback in Q2, only narrowly avoiding elimination as Pierre Gasly missed out on the final shootout by just fractions of a second. The midfield battle also delivered surprises, with Racing Bulls impressing while Cadillac struggled despite bringing major upgrades. Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas were eliminated in Q1, joining Williams and Aston Martin at the back of the grid. With Mercedes locking out the front battle, Ferrari showing serious pace, and Verstappen forced to recover from a mistake, the Austrian Grand Prix is set up for an explosive race day. Russell had the advantage, but at the Red Bull Ring, one corner can change everything. Russell wins, Austrian thriller, and Verstappen and Antonelli fight to finish. The Austrian Grand Prix delivered a spectacular race at the Red Bull Ring, with George Russell converting pole position into victory after a tense 71-lap battle against Max Verstappen and championship leader Kimi Antonelli. Russell made the perfect start from pole, controlling the opening stages and building a strong lead. Behind him, the fight immediately became intense as Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, and Kimi Antonelli battled for position. Antonelli struggled earlier in the race, running wide multiple times and losing momentum, while Verstappen quickly recovered from his qualifying crash and began his charge through the field. The biggest battle of the opening phase came between Verstappen and Hamilton. The two former rivals went wheel to wheel several times, with Verstappen eventually moving into second place after a series of aggressive but exciting exchanges. As the pit strategy unfolded, the race became a game of timing and tire management. Russell maintained control at the front, but Verstappen began closing the gap after his final stop, turning the closing laps into a fight for victory. Antonelli also returned to the battle, chasing down Verstappen and keeping pressure on the Red Bull driver for the final podium positions. In the final 5 laps, Verstappen was within striking distance of Russell, while Antonelli was less than a second behind the Dutchman. The pressure was at the highest, but Russell held his nerve and crossed the finish line 1.611 seconds ahead of Verstappen to claim his 7th career victory. Verstappen secured second place after resisting Antonelli's late attack, with the Mercedes rookie finishing third and extending his championship lead. Oscar Piastri finished fourth, ahead of Lewis Hamilton in fifth and Isaac Hadjar in sixth. Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc completed the remaining top points positions, where Racing Bulls impressed with Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad scoring points in ninth and 10th. The race also brought disappointment for several teams. Cadillac suffered a double retirement after both Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas retired with overheating brake issues, while Carlos Sainz's race ended after his Williams stopped with an electrical problem. Russell's victory puts him back into second place in the Drivers' Championship, but Antonelli remains in control with a 40-point advantage. A weekend dominated by Mercedes ended with a Mercedes win, but with Verstappen pushing until the final corner. The Austrian Grand Prix proved that the fight at the front is far from over. Drivers' Championship Top 5. Antonelli 171 points, Russell 131 points, Hamilton 125 points, Piastri 80 points, Norris 79 points. The Constructors' Championship, Mercedes 302 points, Ferrari 204 points, McLaren 159 points, Red Bull 115 points, and Alpine 57 points. And just like that, the Austrian Grand Prix comes to an unforgettable finish. George Russell takes the victory, Mercedes sends a warning to the grid, Verstappen proves he is never out of the fight, and Antonelli continues the lead, the championship battle. But the Formula One action doesn't stop here. In a back to back sequence of races, F1 heads straight to the legendary Silverstone circuit for the British Grand Prix, happening from July 3rd to July 5th. Another weekend of speed, strategy, rivalries, and unforgettable moments is waiting. Make sure you stay connected and follow all the latest F1 stories, race reactions, and behind the scene content. Follow around the world in 24 tracks on TikTok, Empowered Paddock on Instagram, subscribe to Lights Out with Hanne on YouTube, and listen to the Pitwall Pod on Spotify. For more Formula One content, thank you for joining us for the episode of the podcast. Until next time, keep your engines ready, keep chasing the racing, and we'll see you at Silverstone. Bye.